Right. So when we talk about game thinking, essentially what game thinking is used for or is useful for is rapid innovation. We are in an age of innovation, right? There are so many innovative products coming out and people are thinking so many innovative ideas. And game thinking is all about how to bring those ideas to life. Let me begin by this article that came out in Forbes, and it was some time ago, but it holds true. We know 90% of, or more than actually 90% of startups, not just in India, but everywhere, actually fail. They don't make it to any measure of success. And there are various reasons, but what the study shows here is that it's basically a lack of innovation. You're not trying to do something different, or you're not trying to solve a problem, and that's the issue. Sustained engagement, overall long-term engagement, is also something which is very elusive for a lot of products. It's a very difficult task to maintain engagement over a long period of time. Interest in gamification is also waning. How many of you know about what gamification is? If you could just raise your hand or type a yes or a no in the chat, please let me know. Right, some of you do, some of you don't. Okay. Right, so quickly, let me tell you what gamification is. So gamification is using elements of games, like, points, badges, leaderboards, challenges, all of these different elements of gamification, and putting them into a non-game environment, like maybe a work process, to make it more engaging. That's what gamification is. It's a very old concept now. It's still catching up in this part of the world, but in the US and Europe, it is being used and in fact abused now for a long time. So gamification is visible in many things. We see a lot of, you might have smart watches, and you see there's a lot of gamification there. There are different kinds of online challenges. There's a lot of gamification there. So products, technology products have obviously, applications have obviously used elements of games for a long term to increase their engagement. And that's what gamification is. But you know what, even that is something, if not designed correctly, if not thought out correctly, it is very difficult to get long-term engagement through gamification also. And that's why the interest in gamification is also going down as a useful tool. A very important thing is that as product developers, as entrepreneurs, as startup founders, we also need to gain the trust of our audience. And trust is a big issue nowadays. Of course, there's so much, talk about data privacy, about, our access, our information being shared. Even recently, Zoom has come under a lot of critique because of its data being shared to different parts of the world, unauthorized access and everything. So all of these issues are again something which are a huge detriment to the engagement that any application can gather. And of course, our customers will always have a lot of choices, right? So how do we stand out? How do we engage them? By bribing them? There are lots of applications that would give you gifts and, vouchers and, discounts and stuff to get you on board, right? But that only works for a little while. Manipulation. So gamification is something which is used at times to alter the behavior of the audience, but that again does not work long term. What does work long term is empowerment. If you are able to empower your users, that's when you are assured of long term engagement. You are giving autonomy to your users. So this is me, Ambikesh. I'm the first certified game thinking coach of India. Game thinking is a methodology, a product development methodology that has been developed by Amy Jo Kim. Amy is a very renowned game designer, entrepreneur, and innovation coach. She's based out of the Silicon Valley. She has written 2 books, amazing books. The first one was on community building on the web. So, because she has a background of behavior sciences also. So, coupled with the development and the game design experience that she has had, she came out with this book called Community Building on the Web. And quite recently, she has come out with this book, which is Game Thinking. Game thinking has been used, has helped a lot of companies. You can see some very famous names here: Netflix, New York Times, eBay, Disney, EA, Happify, Sims. Have any of you played any online multiplayer games? Again, if you could let me know in chat if there are some online multiplayer games that you guys play these days. Let me know the names. I'm sure I wouldn't know them. But yeah, right now in the lockdown days, I'm sure you guys are engaging in a lot of online play. So do share some names. Okay, PUBG, of course, yeah. Call of Duty, okay. Scribble, nice. Right, so there are a lot of these online community games, right? And game thinking again is something which can help you if you're engaging a large audience. This process helps you understand how to do that. Tambola, of course, is a classic. So these are some of the companies where game thinking has been used, concepts have been used. eBay, of course, everybody knows what it is. And massive multiplayer RPG games, role-playing games, multiplayer rhythm action games, simulation games, mobile fashion app, digital mental health app. All these applications, all these companies have used game thinking and have crossed the chasm, been a success. But of course, there are so many of them who are not able to cross that chasm. So let's talk a little about game thinking and what it actually entails. What we are trying to do is we are trying to find our product market fit. Okay, so we're trying to build a product. We need to make sure how it fits into the existing market, into its target market. What you see here are the 5 steps of game thinking. This is very close. You might think this is very close to design thinking. Let me know if you guys know of design thinking. Please let me know in the chat if you guys know of design thinking. Okay. Does anyone know about design thinking? No? Okay. So design thinking is again a methodology that is used to develop solutions, to co-develop solutions. And there is a bit of an overlap between game thinking and design thinking. So if you don't know about design thinking, I won't go into that, but let's just focus on game thinking for now then. So game thinking, when we're trying to design a product or a service, we go through these 5 steps essentially. The first step is hypothesize. I'll tell you briefly about, okay, Nikunj knows. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Nikunj, you're right. So this is also something similar. It draws from concepts of design thinking, but there are unique aspects to game thinking. So I was talking about the 5 steps. I'll quickly talk about them a little bit. Hypothesize is the first step. This is where you hypothesize your idea. You determine what your hypothesis is. So you begin with what your target market is going to be, how you're going to find your early audience, what is your value proposition, what is the unmet need that you're trying to solve. All of these things you do in the first step. The second step is empathize. Empathize, comes from the word empathy, of course. And what we're trying to do is we try to get into the shoes of the users, into the place of the users, and evaluate the solution and the problem that we're trying to solve. Okay. So in this step, we find out our early adopters, our early users, and try and get their feedback on what we are trying to do. The third step is design. Pretty obvious. Now that we have certain hypothesis and there's some level of validation, we do a design. We do rough prototyping at this stage, and I'll talk a little bit more about what rough prototyping is a little later. We share those designs again with those early adopters, those early users, and again try and get a validation from them. And once we do get a final design, that's when we validate our initial hypothesis. Okay, does that make sense, guys? Let me know. All right. Awesome. So let's continue. So Mr. Frank Lloyd Wright was a very famous architect in the US, many years ago. But what he said holds true even today. So one of his famous quotes was, "You can use an eraser on the drafting table or a sledgehammer on the construction site." So between the eraser and the sledgehammer, what do you think would be cheaper? The eraser, right? So what we're trying to say is, instead of building out something and then figuring out that that's not what the users want, then trying to change it, even if I talk about changing a piece of code, it requires a lot of effort. But if I am making changes to a very rough prototype, maybe a sketch, maybe a wireframe that I've created, changing that is very easy and very cheap. Hence, one of the key concepts or tenets of game thinking is we always begin by creating rough, low fidelity prototypes. I'm sure you understand what rough prototypes are, but do you understand what low fidelity means? So low fidelity, by saying low fidelity, we mean that you should not get too attached to your prototypes because they're going to change. Users will change, users will make changes, will want changes to the prototype. That's the whole purpose of creating it. So when you create these prototypes, don't get too attached to the design. There are 3 pillars of game thinking, which I'm going to talk about today. There are, of course, the larger 5 steps, but we're not going into that much detail because we don't have that time right now. But I do want to talk to you about 3 pillars of game thinking. These are main things that we focus on when we are doing any kind of product design. First is high-need superfans. This is a very interesting concept. The definition of a superfan is these are people who understand that, who feel the pain that you're trying to solve. So they're already feeling that pain. They know that there is a problem, right? They've been trying to find some kind of workaround, some kind of jugaad to solve that problem. And they're not happy with it. So they're looking for a solution, right? So through game thinking, we are able to find out such people. The second concept is creating a compelling mastery path. We'll deep dive into this later on. This talks about how to create a very engaging, how to design a very engaging journey for your users. And the last one is pleasurable learning loop. What is the core activity, the core loop of your platform, of your app, of your product, for which people come back again and again? How to figure that out. All right, guys, ready? Let's dive into the first one, high-need superfans. So before I go here, let me talk a little bit about this one. So high-need superfans, as I told you, these are people who already feel the pain that you're trying to solve, right? They've been trying to solve it. They're not happy with the existing solutions. So what we do is we create a screener. We create a funnel. Okay, it's a survey, and there's an art and science to creating this survey. We create this survey and we use platforms like the social media platforms that we have right now to reach out to our audience. And the way they answer this survey, when they answer this survey, first and foremost, the people who take out time and answer the survey are in itself giving you a level of validation that they feel this problem. The second is the way they answer this survey will tell you exactly who are these superfans, who are these people that you need to then probably have a deeper discussion with. Okay? Identifying these people is a very important first step of your product design. If you start talking randomly to people, if you start talking to the wrong people, you might get very wrong results, and of course very bad design. So does that make sense, guys? Is everybody clear about what a superfan is? Let me know if you're not. Right. So Paul Boucher is, of course, the partner at Y Combinator, very famous investment firm, again, Silicon Valley. And so he says, build something just a few people want, even if most people don't get it right away. So it's very important when we are beginning with an idea to create something for, and find an early audience and create something for them. And once they love it and once they validate it, then take it to a larger audience. So then you are more sure of your product, of your idea, of the problem that you're solving, and you have a level of validation from real people. Solve a real problem for a narrow niche. Okay. I'm not sure if you guys would have heard of this book. It was a long time ago. It was by Everett Rogers, called Innovation Diffusion Theory, where he created this graph that we see here right now. So when we talk about an audience for any application or product, it can be divided into these different sections of audiences. Okay. The very few early innovators, these people who are very innovative, they are ready to try new solutions, and they constitute 2.5% of the audience. Then comes the early adopters, which are 13.5% of your audience, and these are the people who again are ready to adopt new solutions. They're willing to try something new. Then comes the early majority. These are the people initially who form your early majority of people who have onboarded on your platform using it. Then comes the late majority. These are the people who they've already heard from a lot of people that this works, so now they're using the solution. And of course, the last 16% are the laggards. These are the people who are at the fag end of this graph, and they will only use your product once it's validated, once it becomes popular. That Shah Rukh Khan is doing your ad, right? So, guys, does that make sense? Do you understand what innovation diffusion theory is? All right, Nikunj does. Come on, sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Great. Please keep responding on chat, and so that I know that you guys understand. If you have any questions, you can type it here, but as I said, we'll break in the middle for the Q&A. All right, so that's innovation diffusion theory. There was another book which came later on by Geoffrey Moore called Crossing the Chasm, and this was more recent in 1991. Very interesting book. It's taught in a lot of marketing schools, also a lot of management schools. Sorry, and so Geoffrey Moore introduced another concept of a chasm to this innovation diffusion theory graph. And this chasm, do you guys understand what chasm is? It's like a big gap, right? And he said this exists between the early adopters and the early majority. He said that this is the place where most applications, most products fail. You have early adopters, you probably have a few users in the beginning, but then when you're trying to go big, you're trying to get a mass audience, you don't get it. And that's where you need to shut shop. Crossing the chasm is a phrase that came out of this book. The way you can cross the chasm is by listening to the right people. Okay? Because if you're listening to the wrong people, as I said, it can take you down the wrong road and kill your product. So, superfans. Superfans are going to be different for different projects, different products, different applications. Does that make sense, guys? Do you understand the power of getting a feedback from your audience? Does that make sense, guys? Let me know. Do you understand the concept of the importance of getting feedback from your audience before you start creating your product? If you start writing a piece of code, before you start building something, before you start, finding out partners and distribution models and all that, you need to first be sure of what you're building is going to solve the problem in the real world, right? And that's where the user feedback is very important. All right, so absolutely, Lalit, that's right. So superfans, as said, now when we're looking for superfans, it will look different in different cases, right, for different projects. So for example, for the CEO of Harmonix, who was creating this rhythm game, what they were looking for, and it was a game, right? So they needed gamers, but they also needed people who were rhythm nerds. They're looking for people who were interested in music, but were also gamers. So these were the people who formed their early audience, and they looked for such kind of people. Will Wright, very famous. He has a beautiful masterclass on the masterclass application. If you guys want to check it out. He's the creator of the very famous game, The Sims, and of course many other games. So they were looking at, so Sims is a simulation game. So they were looking at simulation enthusiasts, people who were interested in creating stuff, right? And who loved making things. Mary Lou Song, product manager at eBay, they were looking at enthusiastic early sellers making a living off the site. Imagine this is way back many decades ago when eBay just started. The early people they were looking for, they were going to for the feedback, were these people who had adopted eBay early on, and they were actually making a living by selling stuff on the platform. So these people were very engaged at that time. So getting a feedback from them, creating an application for them made a lot of sense. Ofer Liedner is the president of Happify. This is a mental health application, very famous in the US again. So they were looking at, initially they were looking at a mental health app, of course, right, which was targeted towards people who were in the high stress kind of jobs, like investment banking, dealings, stock market, stuff like that. That was their initial assumption. But when they went through this process, they understood that while it might be very useful for stockbrokers and Wall Street guys, they were not willing to use something like this for various reasons. But you know who were willing to use a mental health app? It was the stay-at-home parents who've recently left the workforce. So they, how narrow they got. See, they were able to identify that there are there's a cohort of these people who've left their jobs, a lot of them mothers who have left their jobs and have started taking care of their kids at home. It's a huge space. Yeah, headspace also too. So it's a huge change for them, a psychological change for them that has happened. Dealing with it, they're willing to use new tools and applications that can help them. So that's the kind of people they were looking for. So I had worked with this company called Travel Triangle. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, but it's a very famous travel platform that connects online travelers with offline travel agencies. And they were looking at engaging their travel agencies. And so the early adoption, super fans that we were looking for were actually the travel agencies that were working with them on the digital platform, even other platforms. So by all of this, what we're trying to say is don't fall for the TAM myth. Do you guys know what TAM is? Let me know if you know what TAM is. Type the full form, guys. Yeah, you can Google. All right, let me give a few more seconds if somebody else wants to answer this. Do you know what TAM is, guys? All right, so TAM is total addressable market. So when we you guys, of course, when you're going to create products in the future. You're going to go out looking for investments. A lot of investment pitches have this slide. The total addressable market is, say, $8 billion, right? But that's great. But that's not where you're going to start. It's not something that's going to help you initially. You can't capture that market initially. You need to start small, right? So don't fall for the TAM myth. You need to start here on the left side of this graph. Capture these people first, get their feedback, create something that they love. Don't try and capture the majority right in the beginning. Right. So guys, does that make sense? Do you understand what superfans are and why they're very important to product development? Okay, let me give a few seconds. If there are any questions right now, shoot. I'll take a few questions if you have any. If not, we'll move ahead. All right, let's move ahead. Continue. Sure, is there a question? Nikunj, yes, game thinking can apply to offline startups too. In fact, even bigger companies, product FMCG companies like Shiseido have used it. Shiseido is a big Japanese brand. Are the early adopters the beta testers? Yes, in a sense, yes. These would be the initial people, but when we're talking about super fans, we're actually talking about alpha, even before your beta. These are the people who are going to see like the first prototypes and designs of yours. Okay, how can you identify early adopters? That's the deeper part of the course, and I'll talk about that later. All right. So let's move ahead. So that was the first pillar, right? We talked about 3 pillars of game thinking. The first was super fans. The second was compelling mastery path. So any application, any game, any product that you're creating, it's for the users, right? And the users go through a journey. They go through path. What we are trying to create on an engaging product, if you pick up any engaging product, you will find that there is a path that the users follow, and it's very carefully designed. And what you need to do is, and as Kathy Sierra says, she's a very famous author of the Head First series, again, great books to check out. You need to upgrade your user, not your product. It's a very powerful line, guys. We in the product development world, product management, we keep talking so much about products and what features to add and how we can make this amazing. But you know what? All of that doesn't make any sense if it's not helping your user get better at what he's trying to do. Talking about the mastery path. Now, if you pick up any product, any application, you can break it down into these 4 steps. The first is discovery. This is when the users discover your product. How are they going to discover it? So these are some of the questions that they ask in the beginning, right? When they're evaluating a product or looking at a product. So what is this? Is it right for me? What's the value proposition? Does it solve my problem? Okay. As product designers, we need to answer these questions in the beginning. And this could be a function of your marketing also. But that's discovery. The second is onboarding. When somebody is convinced that, okay, yes, this is something I want to try out, I go to sign up, I buy your product, whatever it is. So initially, there is a stage of onboarding. How do I learn the ropes? How do I get started? How do I start getting value out of this product? That phase of the user journey is called onboarding. The third, and probably the most important and crucial one, is habit building. What urge pulls me back? What am I getting better at? Why would I want to come back to this platform, this product, this application, this service again and again? What is that core loop that brings me back? Does that make sense, guys? And the last is mastery. Of course, now when I've been using the product, the service for a long time, what is the next progression for me? Is there something for me beyond this habit? Is there something that makes me a master here? What is that? So as product designers, as product creators, we need to create an experience that gets better as customers become more skilled. So a very important aspect of product design and in creating engaging products is skill building for your customers, for your users. Right. Before we move on to the third one, does that make sense, guys? I'm sure you must have, I don't know if you guys have gone through any kind of product development course, you might have seen user journeys and user maps. This is something similar, but we're trying to just break it down into 4 very crucial aspects and phases of any user on any platform. Right. Right. The third pillar is the pleasurable learning loop. Now we're just sort of blowing up the habit building phase and looking at how that loop is getting created. So there's a repeatable, pleasurable activity that leads to some kind of skill building for feedback for the audience. That also leads to some kind of progress or investment that the user is doing on the platform. And then there is a cue and a trigger, which leads back to the repeatable, pleasurable activity. You'll understand more about this this loop when we look at some existing applications and break them down. Right. Right. So Daniel Cook is the co-founder of Spry Fox Games, and it's a famous quote from him: "In a loop, you are learning a skill and updating your mental model. That's what leads to player delight." So talking about games, we're trying to get better at something, right? We're trying to get better at playing tennis, at shooting some bad guys, whatever it is. But the game, if you look at a game, it takes you through all these phases, and as you go along, as you keep playing the game, you keep getting better at it. So how will you know how to create a core loop? What is a core loop? Okay, and how does it help in product design? Before that, let me just put this out there. Do not confuse validating your marketing message with validating your product idea. So a lot of companies, a lot of products create a fake landing page, right? Do you guys know what a fake landing page is? Let me know. If you don't know what a fake landing page is, let me know, guys. Okay. So what happens is, and again, this a lot of this also comes from the marketing teams. But when there is yeah, it's kind of like a fake website. Not exactly fake website, but what we're trying to say is we create a fake a marketing a message, right? An advertisement or a blog or any kind of marketing tool, which leads to a page, a landing page. And the traffic that is driven to that landing page determines whether that was the correct message or that people are looking for that kind of message or not. Okay? But we need to be careful here. This is testing our marketing. It's not testing the product idea or the product itself, right? Because the users have not seen the product till now. They just saw a message and they were attracted by the message and they came to this landing page. There's nothing beyond this landing page right now. So it tests your marketing message, but it does not validate or test your idea. Does that make sense, guys? Are you able to make the distinction? Let me know if that's clear. All right, perfect. Right, so don't get confused by that. The fake landing page tests your marketing message. It does not test or validate your product. Right, so then when we're talking about a core loop, there is another book called The Power of Habits, right? And then from there comes this concept of operant conditioning or the Skinner box, where we're trying to create a loop, trying to create user behavior. Sorry, Nikunj has a question. You strive to break your record or achievement. That is what a loop is, I guess. Yes, in a sense, it's part of the loop. It's the progress and investment part that we talked about. And I'll dive a little deeper into it, Nikunj, when we look at some of the examples in the second half of the presentation. All right, so sorry, to continue. So operant conditioning or the Skinner box is again a concept which is used to modify behavior. Okay, so there is a routine, and as you see in the diagram here, there's a reward if you do a certain activity that creates a habit loop, and again there is a cue. So this sort of continues as long as there is a reward. This loop would break if the reward is not there anymore, or the reward is not engaging anymore. Okay, which happens in a lot of cases, which is why, again, for a long-term engagement, this would not work. The only thing that would work is skill building, making your users or your customers more awesome. If somebody is trying to get better at playing, or at hitting the ball, you need to help him do that. If somebody is trying to get better at learning math, you need to get him there. You need to help him do that. If you're helping him do that, he will come back to your product. Everything else is frills and fancy. It will not take you, it will not help you cross the chasm. Does that make sense, guys? So you understand what the importance of skill building is as compared to manipulation or trying to change a habit? All right. So guys, I want to share this graph with you. Let's look at this carefully. Okay. So this is the sort of map of any product development or any organization that you would see when they're building a product. Initially, they are building an MVP. You guys know what an MVP is? If you know, please type in the full form. MVP. Right, that's one. Most valuable player is one. But in terms of product development, it means something else. No, okay. So MVP is minimum viable product. Yeah, absolutely. So minimum viable product. So that's like the initial prototype or the basic initial product that you would launch. And if you look at this graph, what you're trying to do in the MVP stage is figure out what the habits are of your early adopters, of your super fans, that you can bank on to create that habit loop, that core loop. That's what you need to do in the MVP. Do not worry about onboarding. Do not worry about discovery. That's not for now. Does that make sense, guys? In the initial stage, you're just focusing on building that habit for your early adopters, for your super fans. You're not worried about what the marketing message is going to be, how you're going to get it out there. All that is for later. Okay. In the beta stage is when you need to figure out what your onboarding is going to look like. So in the habit building stage, it's a very close group. There's a small cohort of people that we are sharing this with, and we're building something out. Once we build it, we want to expand the audience and create like a beta tester group, right? So at this stage, these people don't have any previous context of what the product is. So we need to design our onboarding as well. So when they come on board, maybe through an email list or through our contacts or networks, we're trying to get some more people to test this out for us and use our product. there needs to be an onboarding story there so that they know how to use the product, how to start getting value out of it. Okay. Then when we do a larger launch of the product, that's when we need to figure out what the discovery is going to look like. You remember those questions? What is this? What problem does it solve? What is the value proposition? All of those questions need to be answered at this stage. All right. Do you understand, guys? If we begin product development by looking at discovery and onboarding, we're wasting a lot of time. We might be building something that nobody wants anyways. So let's focus first on habit building. Is it something that people want to come back again and again? If not, let's go back to the drawing board, recreate something, show it to the superfans again. And once they validate it, then let's go product. And of course, the last stage is expansion. So we've launched a product, it's working. Now we want to take it to a larger audience, and we want to use the habitual users on a platform. So we create masters out of them. We create a mastery path for them, the next progression for them, right? And they help us do that, by the way, because they're very engaged, users of our product. So once we want to expand further, that's when we need to look at a mastery. Right. So far, guys, any questions? Does that graph make sense to you guys? Guys, let me know if there are any questions at this stage. This is the halfway point. In the second half, I have some product examples to share with you guys, some case studies, what we call the game thinking teardowns. So I will show you how different successful products display the same, the same progression, the same user journey. Yeah, Nikunj, please go ahead with your question. While Nikunj is typing, if any of you have any questions, please type them in. I will take some questions at the stage before we move on to the second half of the presentation. All right. In construction, so Nikunj has a question. In construction industry startups, how can we have contact to our first fans to validate the concept? So it's a very niche example niche industry that you've talked about. Construction industry, of course, is a different kind of industry, and I would actually ask you, what kind of product are you developing there for the construction industry? Totally depends on that. That would determine what is going to be a target audience, and then you can devise a plan of how to reach out to them. Okay, so I would probably need a little more information. What kind of product are you developing in the construction industry? Because it's a very large industry. If you are able to understand who your target audience is, and there are various ways to reach out to them. If you think a survey is something which can help you identify such people, and that's the concept of game thinking. How to create a survey is something that is part of a course that we are designing, and I'll talk about that later at the end of the end of this presentation. Okay. Actually, it depends on chain markets, like recycling the waste product to efficient eco-friendly building or concept of houses for all. So if I understand correctly, you are talking about building eco-friendly construction, right? Okay. Right. So again, okay, I probably would need to have a little more detail about this, but even if that is what you're trying to do, trying to build an eco-friendly house or building, right? You know what? Not a lot of people would be interested in stuff like that. So you need to find your initial early adopters, and these are people I think who would be from the construction world, but they're also very green in their thinking. They are eco-friendly in their thinking. They want to create something which is sustainable. Ecologically, it should be helpful. It should be neutral. So all of these things, are they thinking about such things? So there could be maybe a Facebook group where such like-minded people are sharing ideas about eco-friendly concepts. Maybe that's where you need to put your survey and see who responds to it. Okay. It could also be a physical meeting or a conference or something that is happening. Maybe you can reach out to them there. So depending on how well you can define your early adopters or your early super fans, it depends on how narrow you are able to go in the beginning. That will help you decide how you reach out to them. Does it answer your question, Nicole? I think on a high level. Okay, great. Thanks. Aman, can we target the college audience for MVP habit building? If you are creating a product which is for the college audience, then of course, yes. Sorry if I didn't understand the question, Aman. Is that what you meant to ask? So if you have a product which is for the college audience, of course. Uh, but if it's something which is for working professionals, then talking to college audience doesn't make sense, right? Any other questions, guys? You're welcome, Aman. All right, guys. We'll just take a 2-minute pause, get a glass of water, buy a break or whatever. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, and the second part of the presentation will begin where I will share some examples of products and how the user journey looks on those products. If you have any questions right now, you can please type into the chat. Right? Thanks, guys. Be back in 2 minutes. Hi guys, I'm back. I hope you guys have had a sip of water. We'll have another quick session after this. Right, Nikunj has a question. As you said, construction industry is vast, but there is a void which makes it wasteful and time elapsed industry. I'm trying to make it minimum as possible. That's what my startup lies in. The question arises how to make people aware of it. Right. So there are of course, it's a very positive cause. Looking at the construction industry, the various industries which where there is a lot of waste and also unethical, execution of their processes, which results in a lot of ecological harm. So again, there are different ways to go about it, and Nikunj, I don't have more details. I would, if you want, we can get in touch later on and dive a little deeper into this, and I can see if we can help you there. Um, so are you studying right now, or do you already have started working on this, Nikunj? If I could ask you that. Just to get a sense of where you're coming from. Are you studying right now? Have you already started working on this concept, or what is the stage right now? Okay. Okay, so this is kind of like a passion project for you. This is what you would want to get into. Right. So there's no one answer to this, Nikunj. And as I said, I would love to get deeper into this with you. But again, when we are trying to create or innovate in an existing space, there are already existing players, and we need to figure out, you know, what works for them. So, for example, if it's a construction company, how would you create the value proposition for them? That's very important for you. Even though you're trying to come from an ecological angle here, you need to talk to these people who are in the construction world and figure out how the value proposition makes sense for them. What is the need for them that you're solving? Yes, you're solving a big problem for the environment and for the people, but guess what? That's not something that everybody cares about. So you need to find these people who care about such things and are also from the construction world, so they'll be able to give you the real feedback. Yes. So yes, you would get, all of you would get a follow-up email. So if and there'll be details there for you to reach out to me if you need any further help. There is also, as I said, we've been developing some online courses. So there's stuff that, tools and resources that you can use to get started. All right. So let us move on to the second section. How are you guys excited to see some examples of existing products and see how game thinking and this process has been used there and how it's very visible in the user journey? Okay, all right, lots of yeses. I'm glad. Let me switch to the other presentation. So, guys, these are, I'll close the chat for now so that I can present. I'll look back in a little while. So guys, we look at Slack, Zomato, and Duolingo. These are the three applications that I'm covering today. Let me know quickly which ones have you heard of. Out of three, which ones have you heard of? Please let me know. Of course, Zomato is given. Nice. Interesting. Sejal has heard of Duolingo. Very nice. Sejal, which language were you learning? Wow. Nice. Sure. Sure. Zomato, I'm sure all of us Indians know Zomato is, and I think they've started delivering again now, right? Yeah, let's see. Fingers crossed. I'm waiting for that uh, Chinese. All right, so let's dive into it. So let's begin with Slack. So Slack, for those of you who don't know about Slack, Slack is a communication platform. It's a collaboration and a communication platform. A lot of organizations, a lot of institutions, organizations use it as their primary platform for communication. Okay. Interesting story. So Slack, when it started off, it didn't start off as a communication platform. On an online multiplayer game, and they had been working on it for a long time, and they had this team, their own development team, which was sitting in different locations across the globe actually. And they were doing good work. They had created a game which about 2000 odd people were playing and very engaged with it, but again they were not able to cross the chasm. They didn't go full scale, full blown. When they tried to do that, it didn't work. So as conscientious founders, they still had investor money left, but they said that let's shut this project down because it's not going where we want it to go. It's not getting monetized. So they decided to shut down their primary game. But then they realized that there is this other sort of product or application that we've been using very successfully, which was not the main product, but it was created within the team itself to suit their requirements, and it worked very well. And that's what Slack was. So before, Slack was actually productized and created like a product to be sold to consumers and to users and enterprises, it was actually being used for about 3 years internally. Okay, so it went through 3 years of development as an internal tool, and they already had super fans. The internal users were their the company users, startup users, and they had been using this tool, and it kept on getting enhanced, developed, iterations, MVPs, betas, all of those were coming out internally to support the new requirements that people had. Okay. So see, Slack started as an internal tool for people building a multiplayer cooperative game. All right, let's look at Slack. So, we talked about the mastery path, right? The 4 stages. So let's begin with discovery. So how does somebody discover Slack? So when somebody joins an organization today, if Slack is the primary platform that is being used, they actually get an email either from the HR or from some of their colleagues, or the buddy program that goes on in a lot of organizations. Their buddy would send this to them. So the social discovery is happening via friends or colleagues, right? The next stage is onboarding. So this is, remember now, people have discovered this link to Slack. They've opened it. Now they're on their landing page. They now need to know how to use Slack, how to start getting value out of it, right? That's what onboarding is. And onboarding is done on Slack by using a bot. Okay, so there's a bot which takes you around and shows you different sections of the application and tells you what you can do in different places. Okay. The third most important step, habit building. So, so habit building is for regulars. These people who've been regularly using Slack for some time now. So then there are other stuff that they can do, stuff like customized chat group, with emojis, with bots and integrations. So all of this is for people who've been using Slack regularly, and that's what creates a habit for them. They keep coming back to it again. Mastery. So mastery is for enthusiasts. These are people who have gone beyond just basically using it. They want to do other stuff with it. That's when the stuff like you can launch a channel, a special channel. You can program a bot. You can integrate your app with other applications. So all of this is available for masters, people who have gone beyond the regular usage and want to get more out of the application. Let's blow up the habit loop for Slack. Okay, remember this habit loop, right? We talked about it in the first half of the presentation. So let's dive a little deeper into this and specifically look at it from Slack's perspective. Okay, so there is a trigger. What the trigger is, it's FOMO. So you guys know what FOMO is, right? Let me know if you know what FOMO is. Please type in the chat if you know what FOMO is, the full form of FOMO. Yes, Sejal is correct. Fear of missing out, right? It's a millennial term, so I thought you guys might know it, but anyways. So fear of missing out, right? So if there's a messaging platform which is being used inside your organization, inside your institute maybe, and everybody is using it, you would also, if there's a message that's coming in, we want to look at it, right? We want to figure out what's going on. So it's that fear of missing out which is the trigger. It's nobody is forcing me to look at Slack, but I want to check it out, what's happening. So that's the trigger, FOMO. Check the updates, what's happening. I sent a message, is there a reply to it? Okay. What is the activity that we perform then? We open up the app and we read and respond to updates. Okay. Now, what is the sort of the feedback that Slack as an application or platform gives the user? All updates are read. That's the simple feedback that Slack gives you, nothing fancy. It gives you in various humorous ways. You're up to date, go forth and do great things. You're all read. Here's a pony. Everything unread is now read. You've done it. So all of this is just indicating or giving one simple feedback to the audience that all your updates have been read. Progress and trigger again. So sorry before I go there. So the progress is you can customize your channel. So now you've reached a certain stage. So you've created a custom channel. You know what? Now you will be more invested on the platform, right? Because this is a custom channel that you created. You would want to come out and check what's happening there more than anybody else. So that's your investment and that's your progress on the platform. Does that make sense, guys? I know one of you asked me about, achievements and all on, is that part of the loop? So yes, this is where that comes in. If you have an achievement in a game, all those points that you accumulated and saved in a game, it'll make you come back, right? And make you come back to the game. It'll, if there's a loyalty program that you're part of, you keep using the same airlines, you keep stacking up those points, those miles. You want to, again, when you want to book a ticket, you want to go to the same airline, right? That's your investment there. That's your progress there that you've accumulated over a period of time. So if you are able to create that for your users, guess what? They'll come back again and again. Does that make sense, guys? Does that example illustrate the 4 stages. Are you able to see that and understand that? Great. Awesome. Let's move on to the most popular app, right? Out of the 3 of these, which is Zomato. All of us, I think, have used it at certain points in life. All right. So, what does discovery look like for Zomato? It's me. I used to go there before the lockdown. I used to go to this waffle place, Belgian waffle company. I love them, love their waffles. So I wrote an update, a review, and posted it on Facebook, right? So all my friends can see it. So social discovery is happening through friends and followers here. So this is just one way of discovery. And if nobody has heard of Belgian waffle, they will now, right? Because it went through on Zomato, I posted this review and shared it on Facebook. There are various other ways that discovery could happen. Onboarding. So Zomato obviously keeps changing their application pretty often. So this is one of the screenshots that I got a few months ago. And but what happens is, I think that's still happening. Is that when you are a first-time user of Zomato, when you've logged in for the first time, it takes you through like a spotlight tour. So it just highlights the different sections of the application and quickly tells you what is where, how you can order online, or you can explore restaurants to go out to, how you can find places, the Zomato Gold option, Dine Line, so it just takes you through a quick tour of the application. So this is how onboarding happens on Zomato. Habit building. Habit building is, when do I think of Zomato? It's when I think of food, right? When I think of either ordering food or going out for food, that's when I open my Zomato app. So that's the trigger. Okay. And what's happening here is that they're giving me options to explore. They're giving me restaurant reviews. They're giving me also an option to submit my reviews once I've been to a restaurant. So all of this is what creates that habit for me. Now, once yes, when we're hungry, right? Saurabh is right. Saurabh, are you hungry? All right. Let's look at what mastery looks like on Zomato. Have you guys looked at this? Are you at different levels here? I'm not too high on this ladder. I think I'm close to big foodie, but I'm not there yet. Let me know if you guys have any of these levels. Is anybody a super foodie, a connoisseur, a big foodie? Anyone? Type in the chat and let me know, guys. Are any of you foodies? Not yet. So what levels are you guys at? Are you all at foodie like me? Really? Okay. So we are all beginners. No worries. But I know of a lot of people who are at the connoisseur stage, at the connoisseur level. And there are benefits to being at the connoisseur level. You get invites to go and dine at new restaurants. Yeah, exactly. You get invites for free meals. Because you know what? A friend of mine who lives in Delhi has, I think, about 3,000 odd followers on Zomato. And he gets every weekend, he gets at least 1 or 2 invites to go to these new places which have opened up, to go and have a free meal there, have free drinks there, and then write a review on Zomato. And that's not his job, by the way. He's a doctor. But he does this. He's a foodie. He loves going out, loves eating, and now he has created this online persona for himself, which is on Zomato. So he, of course, comes back to Zomato every time to put his review. He's not putting it anywhere else. You know why? Because there is a progress and an investment here. He's invested here, right? So that's what the mastery looks like for Zomato. Does that make sense, guys? Do you understand? Let me know if that example made things clear. I'm sure Zomato is the app that we're most familiar with. So This example should make sense to all of you. Any questions till now, guys? We have another application to go after this. It'll be a quick one. Zomato being the most popular one. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll wait for a few seconds here. Does game thinking also depend upon data collection? Right. So the kind of data we are looking at in the initial stages is, what are my assumptions that I'm taking? Are they valid or not? Am I solving a problem or not? So that's sort of, is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about how to collect data of users or something like that? I'm not sure what the question is, Nikunj. Because of course there will be a lot of data which flows into the process, and you analyze that data and take decisions, but they are interrelated to each other. Again, sorry, I'm not exactly understanding the question, Nikunj. They are, I mean, of course, so in the process, we will be gathering data through the survey and everything. We will be gathering a certain amount of data, and we'll analyze that data to figure out who our super fans are. And once we have that, we will share with them we'll have an interview with them first to deep dive into the problems that they discussed with us in the screener. Okay, and then we design certain prototypes and share it. Again, we have a cohort, right? So we again share it back with them and get their feedback on them. And only once we have a validated design is when we go ahead and start creating something, start building something. So data, so yes, different kinds of data of, what the market is, what's your competitor doing, stuff like that, yes, would be important. But that's not the core of game thinking. If that answers your, so game thinking is a methodology, it's a process. It's not exactly dependent on data, but yes, data of course will come into play. All right, let's look at the pleasurable learning loop for Zomato. So as who had pointed out right now, one of you had said, right, when we are hungry. So yeah, that's the trigger, right? So the trigger is when we are hungry, Saurabh, right? So Saurabh said when we are hungry, that's the trigger. So when the trigger happens, what we do is we need to go and explore restaurants nearby, right? And that's when we open up Zomato. And once we go there, what do we do there, or what kind of feedback do we get from the application is we look at the reviews, right? The progress and investment is that we also submit some reviews, and that gives us certain points, certain benefits on the application, which by the way can be used only on the application. All those points of those levels of connoisseur and everything, it only makes sense or has any importance on Zomato, right? I can't go and use that on say Diner app, right? I can't do that. So that's why I stick to this app. I keep all my reviews on Zomato. And guess what? The next time you want to eat out again, you will look at the same map. Right? So was that clear, guys? Any questions till now? All right. We'll move to the last application, which I want to talk about as an example, which is Duolingo. So for those of you who don't know about Duolingo, Duolingo is a very famous app which is used if you want to learn a new language. And, it has a massive library of languages which you can go and learn. It's free, so you must try it. It's a wonderful app. I think Sejal had said that she had learned German here. So yeah, so that's what Duolingo is. Okay. The discovery. Let's look at what discovery looks like on Duolingo. Sorry. Saurabh Javale, what is game thinking methodology for OYO? I haven't thought about it, Saurabh. So what I'm showing you right now, these are called teardowns, game thinking teardowns, and these are a wonderful way of evaluating. So yeah, it would be interesting. As I said, there are some resources that we'll share with you. Have a look at that. If you're interested in that, there's a way that discovery value proposition. Very clear. Learn a language for free forever. That's their value prop. Very clear, guys, right? Don't you think? Anybody who comes and looks at this, the first go knows what's in store for him, right? You can get to learn a language and it's for free. Onboarding. So onboarding, they have these different screens which come up. So it begins with, of course, which course you want to choose. Then you pick a goal. How committed are you? How much time can you invest? 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. What is your level of engagement that you want? Then choose your path. Are you a beginner or are you not a beginner? Right? Because all the subsequent content will depend on if I am. So imagine this: if I already know basic Spanish and you start giving me simple words in the beginning, I will get bored with the game very quickly, right? So my onboarding needs to be in sync with my level of expertise in the language, which is why this question is done here. Right. Habit building. Now, so Duolingo is one of the few examples in the world that have used gamification very effectively. So they've created these mini games. You play these games, and then of course you get, like achievement, leveled up, all these kind of badges, and there's a leaderboard, and you can take part in a competition. So they've used elements of gamification, but they've used it very well. And that's not what the people are there for. They're there for learning a language. If at the end they're not able to help people get for example, if somebody is trying to learn German, if they're not able to help that person get better at learning German, guess what, all that gamification will fall flat. Nobody will stay there only for the games, right? If it's about game, I can probably go and play a much better game. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to learn a language. So, small mini games like, translate this sentence, fill in the blank with the right words. So all of these different games form the habit loop. For masters, there are different levels of progress and investment that happens here. As you can see, there are leaderboards. You can compete with your friends, with other people. There are different badges that you can earn. So all of this is for the masters. You keep unlocking fresh content as you go ahead. So I think one of you, Sejal, you said you had learned German, right? Did you like it? Did you like the app? Is Sejal still there? All right. Maybe not. No worries. So as you can see, you can see these different stages of the user journey have been thought out and designed very well, which is why these are some of the most successful applications. Let's look at the pleasurable learning loop for Duolingo. So the trigger is that you get a daily email where you get an update and you get an update about your new challenge. There's a game that you need to play. So you go ahead and play that, complete that mini game. Okay. The feedback is that once you complete, you earn some rewards. The investment is that you unlock content as you go along. If I'm in level 3, level 4, I unlock, I complete all those mini games, I go to level 5. Okay. So I'm unlocking content which is available here only. So that's my investment here. I will not, if I go to another application, I need to start in the beginning again, right? So I am invested in this application. And as we come back to the original concept, skill building is the most important thing. We need to make the customers, the users more awesome rather than trying to create the product, make the product more awesome. Okay. Learning loop is making customers more skillful. Okay. So we need to understand what is the skill building feedback that we are giving back to the user. Mastery path. The experience gets better as the customers become more skilled. So there's a natural progression which is being designed for the users. When we do this, we are ensured of long-term engagement. Okay. All right. So this approach works for entrepreneurs worldwide. There are various examples. These are people who've worked with game thinking, the organization, they've received great results. There's just some of these people, as you can see across the globe, these methodologies are being used successfully, and we need to empower our users. Okay, that's the bottom line. So this is game thinking, getting back to the 5 steps: hypothesize, create your hypothesis, empathize, find your early adopters, your early superfans, empathize with them, figure out what works for them, what does not, create your design accordingly, do rough, quick play tests with them to understand what works, and then validate your hypothesis. Okay. So when you're building a product, these are the things you need to ask yourself first. Who are my first 50 hot core customers? What do they look like? How can I find them? Okay. What do they need? What do they want to get better at? We need to figure this out. This is what will drive engagement. How will my product engage with them over time? So what's going to be that, user progression journey that we design for them? This increases your odds of crossing the chasm. Right? There is a quiz, and I'll share this with you. You'll get a follow-up email also. That was my presentation. Thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I will take those questions now. So first and foremost, did you guys find this of value? Did this clear some concepts of product development for you? Okay, Nikunj says it was very helpful. Thank you, Nikunj. What about you guys, the others? I haven't heard from a lot of you. If you could just type in and let me know what you thought. Was this did this presentation give any value to you? Thank you, Snehal. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you, Aksh. If there are any questions, guys, please let me know at this point. I would like to take some questions. Thank you, Nitish. Sure, Nikunj, we'll reach out to you with a method of reaching out to us. Absolutely. All right, great. Okay. So in the end, I just want to share one more thing, and I will share my screen. Give me 1 second. Right. So there is a basic course that has been compiled, and this has been done by Amy Jo Kim. You will also see another breakdown here in this course, which I have created for Make My Trip. I'm sure you guys know of that application. So this course is called Game Thinking Secrets. And I'll just quickly take you through the different parts of the course. The first is the secrets behind the breakthrough hits. So, some of the concept that we've talked about, we'll deep dive into it. How do you find and delight your hardcore super fans? How do you build rough prototypes? Okay. The second part is about empathize. What kind of questions do you ask? So 5 magic discovery questions. What are those going to be? Part 3 is about how do you design a compelling customer journey. So of course, I talked briefly about this, but this course will go into much details about with examples on how to do that. And the last part, of course, is how to build your next breakout hit with game thinking. So there's a recap of the whole course, and in the end, you will also find some game thinking teardowns like the ones I shared with you. So, are any of you guys interested in an online course like this? Please let me know by typing in the chat. Will any of you be interested in a course like this, guys? Let us know. All right, Aman, Nikunj, okay. Right, so guys, you will all get emails, follow-up emails from YuvaLeads, and you'll get a follow-up. Snehal is asking, should one have any specific stream knowledge to go further? Not really, Snehal. All of these are very, basic. You don't need any kind of knowledge or any particular stream knowledge before you start getting into this, because this is product development, this is solutioning, it's for everybody. So even if you're from a commerce background, that's fine. Product development is still something you can get into. Right. So, guys, at this point, I would like to invite Harsh to, talk to you guys and tell you about YuvaLeads. It's a wonderful platform that is being created. And so, Harsh, if you would want to come, switch on your mic and talk to the students about this, that would be great.
Hi, Ambikesh. Thank you very much for the session today. I was attending throughout the session, so I found this thing very, very interesting. Even I would like to do the course sometime whenever
So,
I get time.
absolutely.
Thank you all of you for attending this session. As Ambikesh has already taken you through the entire concept of game thinking, and he has already also briefed you about our plans to come up with the course. So we'll all send you a follow up about what is our next plan and how are we planning to do it. So any one of you is, if you are interested in getting in touch with either Ambikesh or take some guidance from him, we will also send across all his contact details to you so that you can get in touch with him and take it ahead. Thank you, and thank you for attending the meeting. Thanks, Ambikesh. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for attending the meeting today. You guys have a safe day. Have a good weekend, and stay indoors. Don't trouble your parents too much. Cheers, guys. Stay safe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.